And his visit to China. Another sort of news, however, has emerged from the presidential quarter. We turn to Melissa Gardner at KZAB in Santa Fe with this breaking news. Melissa?
Thanks, Richard. Today, a local Firefly girl accused the president of sexual misconduct. This photo of the president with the girls was taken during their recent tour of the White House. The girl claims that the sexual misconduct occurred inside the Oval Office. Her attorney says there are no plans yet to hold a press conference. Right now, folks in Santa Fe and the rest of America are waiting for a response from the White House on these harsh allegations.
I mean, first of all, I don't think it has anything to do with, Clinton, and that we weren't chasing any specific thing about, the Clinton administration. In fact, that's why I never really show a president, period, because you don't want to put a face to a president. It's really the presidency as opposed to a specific president. And I do think it is more the media in terms of how much manipulation is taking place on a day-to-day basis. And to the point that we no longer are quite sure where reality is and those things which are fabricated. And it gets to be, I think, more sinister as time goes along, because you'll be able to do even more things, as we allude to in the movie, by digitally putting someone in another environment, so that if seeing is no longer believing, then where are we? And then we're really left to our own sense of morality, and how far does that play out?
We thought a year ago, when we finished Wag the Dog, that we had made a real good political satire. Today, it doesn't feel like satire. The events that have happened in this country, certainly in the past 4 months, are far more outrageous than anything we could come up with. As a matter of fact, if we had come up with some of these events, if we'd come up with a Linda Tripp and a Lucianne Goldberg, people would have said, write this out, this is too ridiculous, please. I mean, so there's no more satire. And as a matter of fact, today I was having a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about Network, and I don't know when's the last time you watched Network, but Network has come true. By the time you see Faye Dunaway sitting down with this black activist talking about how she should do a talk show program with some white conservative, come on, this is CNBC every night of the week. Network has completely come true. Howard Beale screaming to everybody, saying, I can't take this anymore, and talking about how, what have you become? It's carnivals and jokesters and whatever else. And he goes on and says, this is what television's become. Jerry Springer, give me a break.
How much is that affecting us and confusing us is, I guess, issues that we'll just sort of debate. But it's a hard thing when once upon a time things were real and some things weren't real. And now we begin to blur those lines, between fact and fiction. Once the lines between fact and fiction blur, then we begin to become much more skeptical and much more cynical. And I think that's why sometimes certain information is presented and people don't know what to believe. And I think that's where we are right now.
I do think that film is like a face in the crowd, and Wag the Dog really do a public service, because it's when I was talking about our kids being raised more cynically now, and seeing through a lot of the stuff that people used to just swallow whole. I think that films like that are a learning process. Just as Face in the Crowd was a warning, Wag the Dog gives us some insight as to how you could actually maybe start a war, which is incidentally not quite as far-fetched as it seems. All the way back to the Spanish-American War, a lot of people think that William Randolph Hearst, with his beating the drum for war and building up the atrocities and all this, and anti-Spain and Remember the Maine, all the rest of it, had a great deal to do with making that war. So it's happened through journalism. It's happened through radio. It's easier than ever to sell on television, which is so far the greatest means for selling commodities, whether it's beer or presidential candidates, almost interchangeably to what they hope are the gullible consumers.
The political film has never been a popular genre. And it's always been very difficult to get a political film made. I mean, I don't even really consider The Manchurian Candidate a political film. I consider it a thriller. I really do. It's a melodrama, as is 7 Days in May, that has political overtones to it, yes. But certainly in the case of Manchurian Candidate, every studio in town had turned that picture down until we got Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra was the biggest star of his time. So when he said he wanted to do it, it was very simple to get the financing from United Artists. But even after they saw the picture, they didn't believe in it. It wasn't until people had to tell them that it's really good that they finally got it. By that time, it was already out. 7 Days in May was a tough picture to get made. But because of the cast we had, Paramount did it. It's, as I say, I mean, I'm repeating myself, but it's never been easy.
I've always been fascinated by documentaries. I've always loved, documentary work. And The War Room, I think, is a good example of looking at the political process. Not the agenda of what the man stands for as much as what do you need to do to get the man, to the place that you want him to be in.
Well, everybody's looking for a story to feed to the press that will, really hold the interest of, the viewers out there, because, they're all selling, cheese anyway, no matter what. And that's a little bit of the problem, with television and news, I know, but they work it on both sides. When we did The War Room, the campaign is in just as much of a battle to kind of sell their candidate. And I remember one instance in particular that we have in our film when all of a sudden someone came in with a videotape that showed that there were Bush campaign materials, posters and bumper stickers and all this kind of stuff being made in Brazil.
Put the tape in the thing. And this is wonderful in the South. Look, if you listen to the tape, watch this, y'all.
As últimas pesquisas provocaram pelo menos grande susto. Com os democratas na frente, a já milionária e multicolorida campanha eleitoral americana vai ser ainda mais agitada. A ordem do Partido Republicano...
Yeah, why did we go to Brazil? I wanted to pay for it. It's James Gate. Rio Gate. Oh, man.
Hey, Kaya. Get me Susan Zerensky's number, please. With CBS? Susan Zerensky, please. James Carville. Huh? She's the woman that broadcast news. Hey, I got something I'd be interested in. How would you like a videotape of a newscast on Brazilian television that has, that we believe the script goes something like this, with appropriate visuals of printing presses? The Republican campaign is what What it is that Bush is buying up to $10 million in printing in Brazil. And the Brazilian TV ran it. It's this huge printing presses with Bush Quayle material coming on. I mean, it's perfect for television. You know, I am so goddamn tired of this goddamn double standards where the press lets these sons of bitches get away with murder in every little thing that we do. Clinton's numbers don't add up. Clinton's numbers don't add up.
So fucking true.
You know? If we say 50 plus 50 is 104, and they say 50 plus 50 is 104,000, they'll say, well, both of them are stretching the numbers a little bit. Hello? Yeah. All the goddamn stories. They're not going with the story. They're printing the shit, you know. I think that they've given up on it now, Governor. Bush people said they got the guy wired and said, well, I just did it. It was an offshore operation, you know? So they're trying to nail him. So it's not dead, but it's just not going tonight.
I think that for me, the War Room, the one thing that it had in relation to Wag the Dog was really this round-the-clock feeling of working round the clock and, you know, non-stop, and you're going to work till you get the job done. And that feeling that nobody, you know, nobody ever really slept. Nobody seemed to change their clothes. They, like, ate on the run. They just, you know, they went and went and went until the job was done, until the president was elected, until his ratings, you know, went up, you know, until we won a war.
The war's not over. No, the war isn't over. I saw it on TV. No, that's what they hired me for. No, the war isn't over till I say it's over, okay? This is my picture. This is not the CIA's picture. You think you're in a tight spot now.
I remember at the very end, the last day, when we were shooting the War Room, Ted Koppel appeared. And, you know, this was kind of our private little world, and everybody else was following Clinton, but we were there in the War Room, and then all of a sudden they were there too. And, you know, it was very scary because, you know, that was going to be the end of our story, watching James and George. But at the same time, it didn't matter because they didn't focus on what we focused on. They didn't really care about what James and George were like or what they cared or who were these people that were electing the president. What they really cared about was having Ted Koppel on camera very majestically asking questions to people. And, you know, that's a lot of what it's about. It's about their personas, their host personas.
I think the television, they have this dance worked out, and it works for both of them. It sells papers and it sells, you know, people running for office. And neither of them want to end the dance. It's too rewarding. And it's like they've got this golden goose and they're just dancing their feet off.
It's a pity. I mean, I was Edward R. Murrow's assistant director, and I can just imagine what his reaction would be to the 6 o'clock news now. I mean, he would really, really be in an uproar over it. And, I mean, any semblance of purity, of high intentions, it has vanished, hasn't it? I mean, it's just it's all the Inquirer. I mean, it's really pretty shocking.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like I'm living in the world of network, but I'm here hanging onto the desk, maintaining standards. And what I always say to people, you know, you have to learn to separate us out from all that's going on around us. But that should be true in every field. Look, there's a lot of trash published, committed to the printed page. Doesn't mean that the best work then is judged by those standards. And it's true in films. There's a lot of junk made, but the great films stand out, and we don't say, well, film has gone to hell in America. We ought to be able to do that. Just because we all come out of the same tube doesn't mean that we're all alike.